There are ways, by the way, to track that. There are ways to keep track of what's going on without being too intrusive into their lives. Mostly it has to do with productivity. Mostly that has to do with follow-up and quality control and auditing, not checking everything, but auditing their work and making sure that they're getting done what is required of them.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Okay, quick warning. Audio quality may be, well, I was going to say worse, but maybe better. Who knows? Definitely different today. I am sitting in my car. I am up on a hill overlooking the beautiful Bedford Valley of Wyoming. And I had a few minutes before my next appointment and thought I would take an opportunity to share with you a little bit about mobile appraisal offices. I want to pause here, remind you that we are sponsored by 3 great companies that help make my mobile appraisal office work better. One of them being A La Mode. A La Mode is the mobile company. They are the original company with the mobile app that allows me to appraise from anywhere and gather information that will help to speed the process, to make things more efficient. alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE is where you go. DataMasterusa.com is where you go to find out more about how you can save 30 to 60 minutes per report. It works everywhere your computer is, folks. DataMasterusa.com. And finally, OREP Insurance. Folks, I never have to worry about my insurance. I never have to worry about my E&O. I know I have the best company out there because I've done my research. You should as well. OREP.org is where you need to be. It's OREP.org. Well, folks, this pandemic has brought a lot of change to many appraisal offices. And one of the changes that I see, not just to appraisal offices, but really any office, mostly small businesses, they are switching to more home-based structures. And of course, it was forced on us, if you will, a few months ago when we had to deal with this pandemic and social distancing and how do you run an office with 3 or 4 other people in the office and stay 6 feet away and disinfect everything. And it just became obvious to most people that they needed to start working from home. And many appraisers have done this. Many of my coaching clients have done this. And I've talked them through some things that they can do to better set up their office, and I'm not finding a lot of them coming back. I'm finding that many of them have found that it works actually pretty darn good, if not better than what they had before. And why pay for an overhead, a mortgage, a lease, if you will, utilities in a separate spot? Now, there's certainly reasons for this. In my Go Remodel Your Appraisal Business course that you can find on my website, I go into great detail about the pros and cons of a mobile office and a home-based office, or a brick and mortar, if you will, versus a virtual office. And you can find out more, of course, by purchasing that course. But let me just say this. There are lots of pros and lots of cons. The big con, if you will, the big negative to having a remote office is the commute, is the overhead, is the separate utilities and lease and everything else that goes along with it. It's an expense. And for those of us in small business, those of us running a small business, every penny counts. And that can really change a lot over a year. I don't know what rental prices are in your area. They're actually quite affordable here in Idaho. You can find a pretty decent one-man office or two-man office for about $300 to $400 a month. Now, of course, utilities might be on top of that, but it's pretty reasonable. Many of my coaching clients in LA, East Coast, Florida, Vegas, and the like are paying 3-4 times that for their office space. And it's something you've got as a business owner, you've got to decide, is this right for you? Now, there's a big pro to having an office. I still have young kids at home. Well, they're not too young. They're teenagers. But I've got a wife that's very busy and lots going on at our place, and I certainly have a home-based office. One of my challenges, and it's unique to me, I think, is I don't have high-speed internet at my home-based office. It is, well, they call it high-speed internet. It's not. I get, on average, 10 to 15 down on a good day and 1 to 2 up. Let's just say it's hard to run a virtual meeting from my home-based office. And trust me, folks, there's no other option out there. Yes, I could do HughesNet, but then you've got the delay of shooting it up to the sky and back. But I'm just trying to curb the emails that are going to be coming. And by the way, I appreciate any advice, any help you can send me. But I'm telling you, I've looked at every option, and there's just not a good one for me. So there are reasons to have remote offices. Internet access at your home might be one of them, but probably the biggest is just a place, a space to get away. A place to say, you know what, I'm going to get in my car or on my moped, and I'm going to travel to my office space, and I'm going to create an environment that is quiet, that is free of distractions for the most part, that will allow me to focus on my work. And 5:30, I can clock out and head home and be home. That's the other challenge, of course, to having a home-based office, is the fact that it's always there. It's always present. It's always within eyesight. And it's always tempting to move that direction. Oh, I got to return that text. Oh, I need to check my email. Oh, that last report for the day needs to still be sent out. And we find ourselves gravitating to our home-based offices. So there's pros and cons of each. But that's not the purpose of today's podcast. Today's podcast is talking about having a virtual office, the pros that we already have laid out. But what I'm talking about is if you have staff, if you have individuals that work for you, whether they be domestic or overseas, what do you need to do? What do you need to put in place in order to have the most efficient, most effective appraisal office that you possibly can have? I want to share with you 5 tips today that will help you if you are moving in this direction. If you've already moved in this direction, these tips might help you to better improve the environment that you already find yourself in. For those of you who see that the pandemic may or may not, of course, may or may not be coming to an end, you've got a decision to make. You've been working from home. Your staff has been working from home. Do you continue, or do you go back? Do you gather back in your brick and mortar office? Now, I can tell you from personal experience that I have decided, in fact, yesterday, as of this recording, my lease expired on my office, and I decided not to renew. Yesterday, I was over there packing my stuff and finding a place for it. Now, I do have a brick and mortar office for my coaching. I have to. I mentioned why earlier. I can't coach with 2 megabyte speed upload. It just doesn't work. So I do have an office. It is different than the office I've had in the past. I switched that this week as well. So I'm consolidating 2 offices down to 1. But as far as an appraisal office goes, I've been in communication closely with my office manager and others that work for me, and we talked about the possibility of coming back to work, if you will, coming back into an office. Now, I have employees spread out all over the world. I literally have 2 employees that work in the Philippines, 1 that works in India, and I've got 1 that works in Georgia, another individual that works in another state, and several that work locally, but again, they're working from home at this point. So there is something to be said about this work from home situation. And for those of you, again, who are looking to move in that direction or stay in that direction, let me share with you 5 tips when we get back from the break on how you can make that better. These are things you need to have in place, really, in order to do this and to do this right. I want to pause and remind you of great companies that will allow you to do things right, such as your E&O. Well, Dustin, what are you talking about? What do you mean do E&O right? Well, folks, like any other service that we purchase, you need to get it right. E&O is not cheap. It is not inexpensive, and if you've recently renewed, you know this. You're reminded of this annually every year. Folks, trust me when I tell you that I've done the homework for you. I've looked at every single E&O company out there, at least the major ones, and I have decided on OREP. Well, Dustin, they sponsor your program. Of course you decided on OREP. No, folks, I decided on OREP before they sponsored my program, and I've never turned back. I absolutely love them. It is a joy to promote them. OREP.org is where you can find out more. That's OREP.org. DataMaster saving appraisers 30 to 60 minutes per report. What does that mean, folks? It means you hit a button and 30 to 60 minutes of your day is saved by hitting that button. DataMaster will do that for you. It will do it for you quickly. It's easy to set up. Folks, go to their website. It's DataMasterUSA.com and check out their map and make sure that the coverage area is in your area. But if it is, you need to move to DataMaster. Check them out, DataMasterUSA.com, DataMasterUSA.com. Finally, we're sponsored by Alamo Software. It's the software that I use for my form filling. It's the software that I use for my analytics. It's the software that I use every single day, and so does my staff. It works great remotely. I'll talk about that when we get back from the break. But I want to tell you, folks, that Alamo makes it all possible. It is amazing. Is it more expensive than the others? Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. If you compare dollars to cents, you're going to pay a few more pennies for Alamo. Folks, you're going to get thousands of dollars in return for your penny spent. Trust me on this. Alamo.com. It's 800 Alamo. Welcome back, everybody. Broadcasting from my car. You might hear my dog panting next to me. Got my golden doodle with me today, Copper. And you might hear him panting. You might hear his collar jingle a little bit when he moves. Appraiser dog today. I like to take him on a pretty regular basis. I would say every week or so we do a little traveling together and seem to enjoy it. I think he likes comp pictures. Folks, today we're talking about mobile offices, and not just because I'm broadcasting from my car, but because we have all gone through a worldwide pandemic, and of course are still working through it on some level. Many of you with staff have had to have them work from home. And as they have worked from home, I think many of you have found what I found as well, that working from home ain't all that bad, that working remotely can work. And there's some challenges, absolutely. I recently had to let one of my individuals go because she was not performing. And there are ways, by the way, to track that. There are ways to keep track of what's going on without being too intrusive into their lives. Mostly it has to do with productivity. Mostly that has to do with follow-up and quality control and auditing. Not checking everything, but auditing their work and making sure that they're getting done what is required of them. That starts with knowing how long things take. How long does it take to, if you don't have DataMaster, put comps in the report? How long does it take to fill out page 1? How long does it take to research the zoning? And folks, I literally have that stuff down. I call it my report assembly line. You can get that online at the All-Star team, by the way. I have an assembly line of, I think, about 36 steps that it takes to get an appraisal from step A to step Z, if you will, and then 10 more, of course, with 36 steps. But the point is each of those is assigned a value, a time value. I know how long it takes to pull comps. I know how long it takes to inspect a property. I know how long it takes, including callbacks and voicemail and texting and everything else that we're involved in, to schedule an appointment. I know exactly, on average, how long each of those takes. And if an individual is working an 8-hour day and they have a certain job description, if they're not getting done what they need done, then I know that there's a problem. I know that there's an issue, and we can deal with that. But that just comes from good management. That comes from good practices and procedures and making sure that you follow through on what it is that you are doing in your life. Well, let's talk about what you're doing in your life for just a moment. And if you've decided to continue this remote access, if you will, to not go back to your brick and mortar, here's a couple of things, 5 to be clear, 5 steps that you need to take. And some of these are going to be quite obvious, some of them are not. But I want to go through 5 things that you absolutely cannot live without, in my opinion. Okay, there's certainly ways around this, and there's certainly exceptions to each of these rules. But I'm telling you, folks, I've done it the hard way. I've seen other appraisers do it the hard way, and this is the right way. Number 1, you must, and we've already alluded to it today, you must have a high-speed internet access, and that does not just mean download. That is where a lot of appraisers make a mistake. They go to the company, the internet provider, they ask them what the speed is, and they'll quote them 50, they'll quote them 100, they'll quote them more. But what they fail to find out is first of all, what is the upload speed? Okay, and that will become apparent here in just a moment when I share some of these other steps that I'm going to give you. But also, what is the ping rate? That's important as well, because it really measures how long it takes to bounce off of the other servers. And those things have to be taken into account. It's not just about the download speed. It's not just about how fast you can stream Netflix. All right. High-speed internet, absolutely crucial. And by the way, that high-speed internet has to be at every single access point, meaning if you have somebody in the Philippines doing some virtual assistance for you, one of the steps that we go through, and by the way, you can find out more about this in my virtual assistant webinar that is, by the way, free for the All-Star team on my website, okay, virtual assistants, and we talk about how to interview a VA overseas. And one of the things that I do is have them share their screen and do a speed test. Now, speed tests are not foolproof, but they do get you in the ballpark. They do get you a pretty good idea what the upload, what the download, what the ping rate is going to be. And it has to be strong. Now, it doesn't have to be as strong in the Philippines as maybe in the U.S., and it's not going to be. But it has to meet a certain threshold in order for you to do business and to not get hung up. Number 2, you have to have some version of a server. Dustin, what does that mean? Do I need to have a room full of equipment that I need to dress in white and get in the hazmat suit to go into and make sure it's a crystal clean environment? No, folks, I'm not even talking a server that would even be on a rack on a wall. I'm talking a big computer. And I'm talking about setting that server up in such a way that you can utilize it on your appraisal software. Now, I use a la mode, and this works really good for a la mode because a la mode is set up to work in that environment. And yes, I pay the extra $350, whatever it is a year for the server license. It works well. You need to have some ability to be able to set up a server so multiple computers can run off of that server, and then they can be remoted into through that high-speed internet that we talked about earlier. Okay, set up a server. Folks, if you want to learn more, and by the way, this will not require you to be a member of the All-Star team. You're going to want to anyway. But on my website, there is a server webinar It's under the products page, theappraisercoach.com/products. Just scroll down till you see the server webinar. It is free for everyone. Everyone. Now, it's a little bit deceptive up at the top. I think it says something like view intro or something. Just click on it. It'll share the whole hour and a half that I and my IT guy got together and talked about the server, okay? So if you want some ideas of how to set this up, that's a perfect introduction, if you will, to that. Paperless, that's number 3. You've got to be paperless. Folks, if you're not paperless, holy cow. Listen, I know it's hard. I understand it's hard. I did it, 12, 13 years ago. And trust me, it was a lot harder 12, 13 years ago than it is today, but it's still a mindset change. It's still a shift in your thinking, and I understand that can be a challenge. Human beings are not happy with change. We don't like it. We fight against it. We everything in our brain screams, no, I'm used to the status quo. The status quo works. Change is dangerous. Change is risky. I don't want to put myself out there, and so we don't do it. Folks, trust me, you got to be paperless, okay? You cannot be running files back and forth between you and your assistant across town, and especially between you and your assistant in the Philippines. You've got to be paperless. That is an absolute requirement if you're going to work remotely. Number 3, VoIP systems. What is a VoIP system, Dustin? Stands for Voice over IP. We're talking about telephone. Folks, if you're still using your cell phone as a business line, my friends, stop. Please. First of all, get your sanity back. I literally take 2 phone calls a day, and most of them are not business related. Let me repeat that. I take 2 phone calls a day, and hardly ever are they business related. My phone does not ring. Now, that's another podcast for another day. The point that I'm trying to make is if you're going to work remotely, you need to be able to have everybody on the same line. You need to be able to shift. If Joan needs to run to the restroom, then Kate in across the country needs to answer the phone when it rings. A VoIP system will allow you to be professional on the cheap, but it also allows you the tools that you need to be able to take care of your business. All right, number 5. We're on number 5. So let's recap. Number 1, high-speed internet. Number 2, server. Number 3, go paperless. Number 4, VoIP. Okay, yeah, that was for my purposes. Number 5, you've got to have a communication platform for your staff. Now, I don't care what it is. I've used many, many, many over the years. I am not sold on one right now. Ours is WhatsApp. That's what we're using. It works really well in every country across the world. That's what it's designed to do, was work globally, so it works great. The reason we use WhatsApp is it allows very easily an audio message, meaning a very short voicemail, if you will, walkie-talkie type feature. I use it all the time when I'm driving. I love it because I don't have to take my hands off the wheel. I can hit one button, and I can speak, and then it sends it to whoever I want. My lovely virtual assistant in the Philippines hears from me daily, and I simply have to hit a button. In fact, she just heard from me an hour ago. I was going to a property with a new construction. It didn't have an address. I was having a hard time finding it. I simply sent her a WhatsApp. Hey, Giselle, can you look up the GIS on this and map it to GPS and send it to me, some coordinates? And she was right on it. It's a great, great platform, but there's many others. There's Slack, there's Haytel, there is, a plethora. We could go on and on and on with the things that you can do with communication. But folks, you've got to have a communication tool. It doesn't have to be audio. If you want to choose email or something else, texting, that's fine. Facebook Messenger works okay. Completely up to you how you handle this, but you've got to have the ability to be able to communicate, because it's not just about doing business. It's not just about getting things done. It's not just about messaging Giselle and saying, hey, help me find this property that I'm trying to meet somebody at. It's also about connection. And I know that's hokey, and I know it's hoo-hoo, and I get it, right? I understand all of the gurus out there and the team building. And folks, it's important. It is. We're human beings. We need connection. Your team needs to feel connected to you, okay, on a pretty regular basis. In fact, just yesterday, I let them know that, hey, we've got 4 days left, 4 working days left of this month, and we've already broken a record. We're already higher in gross revenue than we've ever been in 24 years of doing business. And I announced that over WhatsApp to my team. There's channels you can create. I've got a whole team channel that I send out that information. Folks, you've got to stay connected to your team. You've got to do business. And communication can't drop. It just can't. All right, so to recap, number 1, high-speed internet, absolutely a must. That's both up and down ping. Server. Set up a server in such a way that you can work whatever software you need to work. It doesn't have to be as sophisticated as the server system that I have. There's many other ways to do this, and we, by the way, we go over those in the webinar as well. Number 3, paperless. By the way, I have a paperless workshop on my website as well. If you want to know how to go paperless, I go into great detail. By the way, there's a great book that I wrote. Well, okay, I'm biased. I say great because it's fun to read. I think it's fun to read. I wrote a book years ago on how to go paperless. It was in probably 10 years ago when I was going through this process, and it's still very relevant today. But it is written in a fictional story format. Okay, so it's not just a how-to. It's about a guy, an appraiser, who wants to go paperless and goes to a mastermind group, and they kind of talk him through this. And I think it's a fun read. So paperless is number 3. Number 4, voice over IP system. Okay, that's internet, telephone, must have. Number 5, you've got to have a communication system for your staff. Folks, thank you for joining me for my car today. Hope this has been informative and enjoyable, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.